Okay. Are you done now? Did you figure it out?
Oh, I was reading an Excel report. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you. Buffaloes and bunnies. It's weather report for Thursday, August 12th, 2021. And we don't have a whole lot going on today. There was one wild Mad Axe sighting.
A wild one? Oh, good.
A wild one, yeah. Well, you do, yeah. The community meme, the holier than thou thing.
Yeah, the holier than thou. Yeah.
Yeah, and Andrew made a comment.
My sighting was actually a day old because it was that nutty atheism thing. But y'all watched it yesterday on the stream or something, so mine doesn't count. Although that was the weirdest point that anybody's ever made that I don't understand. So,
which one was that?
The one about a tornado doesn't make an orchard, and then there was a picture of walnuts or something.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. That was the God. He needs an
editor. He needs an editor,
writer,
some proofreaders, maybe somebody who knows a little bit about humor.
He needs to hire some writers, And I'm sure there's a lot of comedy writers that need work out there somewhere. But holier than thou, don't act holier than thou enough, whines the atheist. Huh? What? What are you talking about? What the fuck is he talking about? So I think Andrew Cumming did a little post, and he basically said as much. What the hell are you talking about? Ranting about something that isn't even relevant to the discussion of science and logic. And you're saying we act like children? Anyway, to respond to your actual claims, you're attacking a giant man made of straw. Nobody says that, since theists act imperfectly. God must not exist. You could just as easily say atheists act imperfectly, therefore God exists. Anyway, so Andrew goes on, and Maddox, the only thing he has to say, so you missed the point about not letting your ALHLD override your critical think skills, didn't you? You must also have missed the caveat inserted to specifically account for long-winded moronic diatribes. Thanks for being the first of the day to prove my point. So where's the response, Maddox? I'm trying to make your case a little more poignant. What is this case?
Yeah, there's lots of acid, no wit.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely no wit. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, no common sense. No common sense. What else?
It's obvious that he does these while he's sitting on the toilet and he just woke up and he doesn't really put a lot of energy into them.
Yeah.
I guess. John Peterson. John Peterson as well. I talk to him every once in a while. He's taking a break from YouTube for his own sanity. But he has talked about getting on the road and going around and interviewing a bunch of atheists in person in their homes, basically, homes and offices. So he might do a series later on. Anyway, and we were thinking about doing something. What the hell was it? It was some curmudgeon review of something or another, and I kind of suggested it to him, but he'll be back eventually. He can't quit us. Right?
Yeah, YouTube is too much fun, I think, right?
Oh, yeah. Sometimes.
It is fun.
Yeah.
It's a big reason why it's entertainment. Yeah. For me, that's a big part of it.
Well, it's a learning experience.
Yeah, learning.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the main reason, was the learning that I came. But I also, it's also entertaining. There's plenty of that, plenty of drama and entertainment going. The Christians do well at entertaining me, I do have to say.
Yeah. So I watched a couple of Beverly Hillbillies episodes on YouTube, and then I switched over and I started watching tons of videos on the liver because I had become obsessed with the liver, as all alcoholics should be.
Yeah. Might as well see what you've been doing to yourself all those years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, this is something I missed.
Yeah, Leo's got a, yeah.
No, I did not see that, Leo. I am sad about that because Scott Clifton seems like a pretty good dude. Maybe you ought to come on in here and tell us about it.
Yeah, I wonder if it was any good. Yeah.
What's the name of his channel? I know he's like a soap opera star or something, but
Capturing Christianity?
No, Scott Clifton, his channel.
I don't know him. What is that the name he goes by or on YouTube?
No, his channel's a different name.
Okay. What's his like screen name? Because I don't know if I know him.
Theoretical Bullshit. Yeah. Yeah, he was on ACA one time and talked about his Theoretical Bullshit channel, but he never really did anything with it after seeing that. So anyway, but it seemed like he had a good head on his shoulders.
Yeah,
I thought he was an Andy Kaufman character or else a Big Red Dog. I
don't know what you're referring to.
Okay.
Oh, you're talking about Clifford.
Yeah, Clifford the Big Red Dog. Yeah.
Clifford. Yeah.
Okay, wasn't Clifton Andy Kaufman?
Don't know that character.
Andy Kaufman refused to admit that he was this other character. And somebody, even after Andy Kaufman died, came on and did an amazing imitation of him. What is the character? I thought it was Tony Clifton. Tony Clifton.
Okay, Tony Clifton. Now I recall.
Yeah, he was obnoxious as hell. He got booed off stage all the time. Anyway, it was Andy Kaufman, but then 2 years after Kaufman died, Tony Clifton appeared on stage, and he did a damn good job of imitating him. But it's just there's a whole bunch of mythology involved with Tony Clifton.
You ever seen the Jim Carrey movie called Man on the Moon?
Oh yeah, hell yeah. That almost drove Jim Carrey crazy. That character got into him. That's one of the reasons why he backed off from acting for a little while. But
yeah, in real life, the people behind the stage and stuff, he was like wrecking cars or something.
He was scaring them because he was channeling Andy Kaufman. It was just
he was yelling at his makeup artist or makeup person and everything.
Yeah. But he's a pretty interesting guy. He kind of he went Zen and he kind of got his life together. And then he did that HBO series where he played a kid. He was on like a kid show. He was the character in a kid show. What the hell was the name of that? Nobody knows what I'm talking about. Nobody knows HBO lately. God damn it.
No.
Jim Carrey.
I only know HBO as HBO Max nowadays. So.
Oh yeah, the purple thing. The inexplicable purple thing. One day I tuned into HBO and there was this inexplicable purple thing, and that was even worse than the last interface.
Yeah. A lot of these streaming services seem to get their template from somebody, and it gets done up. And then sometimes it's really not that easy to navigate or doesn't provide very many features. So I wish they would make it a full entertaining experience.
Yeah, I think I got it wrong. It wasn't HBO. It might have been something else. But I'm trying to figure it out. Oh, come on. Yeah, we got nothing today, do we?
So Jerry, was saying get the Benny Hill song ready. I don't know what that means. I don't know if it was got an Antangelo sighting or what. I don't know. I don't know what he meant by that, but
I don't know.
I haven't seen Antangelo in a while.
Oh, you got it wrong.
Usually, if you say his name 3 times, he shows up. But
Yep.
Y'all want to watch a Karen video?
Yeah, sure. Throw it up.
Yeah,
All right.
those
This
can be
is from
comical.
Rashad Ritchie. I'm going to put it in the private chat.
Oh, you're going to make me play it?
Yeah. Do you want me to play it?
Well, I got to do it. I'll do it.
I don't know. It's just the way we've done it before.
I got to do everything around here.
All right. Well.
Oh my God.
Oh, and then Icarus wants us to play that link he posted above earlier.
Above. Where's above? Can't find it.
At 4:06 p.m.
My. What's way the fuck back there? Ooh. Tangasalon status. What is this? It's Twitter, right? Twitter thing?
Yeah, I guess
so.
so.
I think so. Yeah.
Does anybody know this Daniel? Is he a theist, Daniel?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah.
Not sure.
Him and Leo have been going at it. They went at it yesterday, and Daniel's looks like he's starting in on Leo again.
That he's chewing on, and he won't let it go.
Yeah.
Who's he? Oh, Daniel Bennett.
Yeah.
Have you figured out what the universal constants are? The cosmic numbers which define our universe.
I think 420 counts, doesn't it?
Things we measured. Like, why don't they just don't understand like reality and how you measure reality, and those constants are pretty much measures, mathematics that falls out of the nature of reality or whatever. And it's like, what other way could it have been? So, anyway.
Right. Yeah. I think they're meaningless. Like, well, they don't mean anything to me compared to a theist. I guess they're important to them.
Yep.
I think it's sort of like the reaction, like when you come close to getting hit by a car but don't, or you meet a guy and then later on he gets arrested for murdering his family or something. You go, oh man, you sure dodged the bullet on that one. I think that's what the constants are. It's just it's just a chance to go, whew, man, if it had been any different, we'd been in trouble. But I don't think it indicates that somebody's watching out for us.
I know it doesn't get you there at all. It doesn't get me there, that's for sure.
My son went to lunch with a guy, basically a businessman, talking about business. Basically, he was meeting all these people that were entrepreneurs, and he met this entrepreneur, and the guy took him for a ride in his Tesla and everything. And 6 months later, the guy murdered his entire family, like shot himself and killed his entire family. Oh. And my son was driving around with this guy and sitting down to lunch with him, and I remember him telling me he thought he was a pretty cool guy, but this cool guy murdered his entire family for some reason.
Yeah, there's an actress named Mercedes McCambridge. She was in the most recent one I can remember is The Sackets. It was a made-for-TV movie based on Louis L'Amour's characters, but she played like the mother of all the Sackets or whatever. But she's been in a lot of movies back, starting in the golden age of Hollywood. But her son lived in Little Rock, Arkansas, back in the 80s, and he would come into the convenience store I worked at on Sundays. He had a hearing aid in his ear, and he wouldn't really say anything to anybody. He would just pick up a paper and get some coffee and then leave. Well, a week or two after I saw him, he murdered his entire family while wearing one of those a scary mask, and then he killed himself.
Holy
and
shit.
Basically, he had been in some trouble with a finance company that he worked for, an investment company that he worked for.
Yeah.
And it was all coming down on him, and his mother, the actress Mercedes McCambridge, basically cut him off and said, "No, you're going to have to get out of your own trouble," even though there was, the whole family was really in trouble. And so that was his solution to the problem, which was sad. But it's weird. I'm glad I didn't make him mad.
I don't understand that murder your whole family part. I mean, I do understand, the urge to take yourself out occasionally, but why would you want to murder your whole family? It's like you think they're miserable too, and you're doing them a favor. It's like I don't really get that.
It's a way to eliminate guilt by eliminating the people you would feel guilty over, maybe. But I think it's actually you know how when you get in certain mental states, everything you think it's kind of warped and skewed in a way. That was probably his warped, skewed way of taking care of his family and preventing them from experiencing the suffering that was going to come their way because of court time and financial struggles and things like that.
It's like, I don't want to feel guilty about committing suicide because of what it'll do to you. So I'm going to kill all of you. And it's like, oh shit, now I feel guilty about killing all of you. Like, I don't know. I don't get her. Okay, we're going to play this Karen thing. We might get a copyright strike.
We might. I've not seen it. But we might as well show it.
Anything that anybody says during this may end up getting edited out because I usually edit those things out. So
okay,
as a common courtesy. Whoop. I'm guessing nobody can hear it.
I cannot hear it. No.
Yep. You haven't played it yet. There, folks. You're good.
I was just making sure he doesn't damage my car.
That's my husband. He's a Marine. He's not going to touch your car.
That's okay. I'm allowed to watch it. It's my car.
He's not going to touch it.
I literally got out of my car and he yelled at you because of a sticker that I choose to have on my car.
Just
example for your child.
Go in the store. It is a great example that you're harassing my husband. Get back.
What?
Get back. Go in the store and stay away from my husband. Bitch.
I came here to get some groceries.
Go do your job then. Go take care of yourself.
What is your goal here? What are you doing?
Get me away from my husband right now. It's called loyalty.
It's over there.
It's called loyalty. Get away
It's
from
called
him.
you're
filming
racist.
him. You're filming him, you bitch.
It's public
It's
property.
America, bitch. It's America, bitch. Go into the store. Mind your.
I don't know. I don't know how much of that we have to look at. Oh my God.
Yeah, the attitudes get real intense.
Yeah, my ex works at a grocery store, and every day she puts up with shit like this.
Yeah.
People coming in with a whole attitude problem, and they got to go pick on somebody and get in their face, and it's always it's America. It's like,
Well, it's that whole mindset of the customer's always right, and so that in a way makes the person powerless because any rule you're told to enforce, like if you work at a store or just about any place, the manager's going to override you just to get the Karen off your back.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really, help you feel any better about being mistreated.
Yeah. Oh, I suppose I'll link that in the description in case somebody does want to watch the whole thing.
Nestle wants to know a question about Harry Potter.
I don't know what that means. I don't know what you mean by
like
Harry Potter.
Like a pink lady from Harry Potter. Oh, Dolores Umbridge. Okay, yeah, she kind of does. Like maybe she needs to go back to those Sagittarius-looking critters and get a little discipline.
Yep. Well, anyway, I aired that Luke thing about a couple hours ago. The conversation with Luke, who is very interesting to listen to, and anybody that's out here listening to this should actually go listen to that because that was I thought it was really an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I'm about halfway in, and it is a very interesting conversation. The guy seems to have a good head on his shoulders.
Yep.
And I hope he comes into the weather report from time to time.
Yeah. And the thumbnail today is a kind of a fanciful picture of a little bit of cortical columns in your cortex, the thinky part of your brain that runs around the outside, kind of like if you had a walnut, the shell of the walnut would be the thinky part of your brain, and the rest of it's just a bunch of fucking nuts. Just nuts on the inside. It's all nuts on the inside, nuts all the way down. But the thinking part of your brain is only about the size of 6 credit cards, and it runs at the surface of your brain, and this is kind of a picture. And I don't know. I thought maybe we'd talk about consciousness, but suddenly...
You're going to play that thing from that Icarus posted?
Oh, that was Arn Ra, right?
Yeah, it was like it looks like some sort of after show, like from the debate, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So Icarus, was there a particular part?
Why doesn't Icarus ever hop in and talk to us?
I don't know. He doesn't like us. You mean?
I guess not. I guess he just was ashamed of us.
A lot of people are just side chat people, right? I mean,
yeah, that's fine too.
I mean, I used to be that way. I was never.
Yeah, it took me a long time before I ever would come on a stream, and now they can't get rid of me. I tell you what.
Yeah.
So maybe this will work. Let me know if you can hear this.
Everything about it.
I'm not really exactly sure why this is.
Needs some more volume.
Of course, we've had a number of.
How the hell do you turn the volume up?
To the right.
Is that Dr. Josh?
No, it's up. That's Dr. Josh.
Yeah.
If you don't recognize the character he's playing, I'm expecting that maybe he's going to be trading in the Hawaiian shirt for another striped one or another orange one. Because he was just arrested a few days ago for spousal abuse.
Of course, that's all unfounded.
He's really good at it.
I never do anything nice. A picture of my wife. Okay, here to help.
I saw this beautiful thing where this guy's ex-wives plural, are getting together in the comments section of this video to compare notes about the things they've witnessed him doing.
Oh wow!
Abusing women, abusing children, and so on. Yeah, what a loving guy.
So where's the original video for this thing? This is Twitter. So is that where it is? That's where they posted the video?
No, it was probably on Tang, because that's the Twitter icon.
That's Oz's channel, right? Tang?
Yeah.
There's Oz right there.
Is that Oz? Yeah.
My God, he is really good at imitating Kent Hovind.
He is. Yeah, Dr. Josh is great at that. Yeah,
that is amazing.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, we played a little. So,
yeah.
What else are we going to do? Oh, I know. Let me hang on a second. Let's see if I can link to that. I'll put that link in the description for people.
So what you said you're going to end at what time? You're just going to go an hour today?
6. Little before 6, because my son's going to get the leash early and walk me again.
Yeah, he just can't linger.
That's a half an hour. Yeah. No, I don't know what you guys want to do. If you guys wanted to look at any of that Andrew's talk with, did you watch any of that, Speed? Any of the on Neff's channel?
I did watch part of it. Could you send me the links? The timestamps, and I'll take a look at it.
Yeah, I actually have them in the other room. I can go grab them right now if you want.
Okay.
But I just did like 2 timestamps because it was one interesting thing. I just happened to catch it. I don't know. I like rewound because I was trying to read the side chat, and I started playing it, and it was that what's his name, C. Brown guy that Andrew talked to. He started talking about evolution and monkeys and why aren't monkeys catching up to us and all this. It was kind of hilarious, that part of it.
Yeah, and I can't remember which stream was it? Nephilim. Was it debate? Is atheism reasonable? That one?
It was what is it? The misspelled basting of.
Oh, the basting, yeah.
Basting or basting, yeah. What did he write?
So that was one. Which monkey is the earliest ancestor of humans, or something? Wasn't that the debate that you're talking about? The debate Arn Ra had with that?
Yeah.
That Mensa Society dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Neff did an after show afterwards, or
Oh boy,
I guess
okay,
you would
yeah.
call it. It was, he just did a live stream after the debate, after Aaron Ross debate. Yeah.
So who knows Kirk Dumpster?
I have no idea who Kirk Dumpster is.
He's some kind of creationist thing. And he, anyway, he's got a little thing on scientism here. I thought it would be appropriate, seeing as how I'm a powerful scientist person. I thought maybe I'd play this. We'll see what happens.
Spends a lot of time thinking about the why questions in life. So if you're interested in discussions pertaining to God, science, and life, then please subscribe to my channel here, where I'll be posting on a regular basis. You can also subscribe to my social media accounts, and the links are below.
Prior to the time of Socrates, the ancient Greeks believed that things like lightning, earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions were caused by the gods. Over the centuries, however, we discovered that these things occur naturally without any need for the Greek gods. Sometime in the last century or so, many people began to believe that science will ultimately explain literally everything, and thus was born something we can call scientism. Scientism can be described as the belief that literally everything can be explained by science. A good question for us to think about might have two parts. The first part of this question is, how has scientism affected modern science? The second part of the question is how it has affected faith. A few years ago, I sat in the office of a biology professor who was a self-described atheist, but at the same time deplored the creative storytelling that was rampant in evolutionary biology in an effort to come up with an explanation for the diversity of life on Earth. Because modern science has embraced scientism, Darwinism is the only game in town, no matter the price in scientific integrity or reliance on creative storytelling. Even staunch Darwinists such as Jerry Fodor and Massimo Piatelli Palmarini have pointed out the profound lack of critical thinking in discussions of evolutionary scenarios. In some earlier videos in the series, we saw how modern science has often lost the distinction between good science and creative storytelling or science fiction. So let's think about how scientism has affected faith. Have you considered how Christianity often embraces scientism without even being aware of it? I have frequently observed Christians trying to provide a natural explanation for a miracle in the Bible in an attempt to make the miracle more credible. For example, I listened to a Christian explain how if the Israelites fleeing Egypt crossed the Sea of Reeds at a very shallow place and the wind had driven the water back, then that would explain what is often described as the parting of the Red Sea. The underlying assumption was, without even realizing it, that if science can verify how some supposed miracle happened in the Bible, then we can have more confidence that the Bible can be trusted. Thus, by making science the standard for credibility, they have unwittingly fallen prey to scientism. Of course, there's nothing wrong at all with investigating something that appears to be a miracle to see if it...
So what do you think he's saying there? Is he saying that we shouldn't try to investigate the miracles to see if the miracles happened?
Probably. Probably. You know, it's like, okay, let's use the most reliable method of determining things, and that's what we're saying. He's saying, no, you need to let it be a miracle.
That's scientism.
Yeah.
So if you parted the Red Sea and the walls of water came back together again, there would be some detectable tsunami sedimentation on the shore. So he's saying that we shouldn't look for that in order to verify the miracle?
I think this is going to evoke enough conversation. I'm going to go ahead and put the link out.
Which link?
To come in here, because we got Nestle wanting in. Jason's out there.
A natural explanation.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay, because Andrew Cumming might want to talk about this, because this is sort of part of it.
Where the line is crossed is when a Christian attaches more credibility to an event in the Bible if we can come up with a scientific explanation for it. So let us think about this for a moment from a Christian perspective.
What would be the scientific explanation for parting the Red Sea? Okay, he talks about wine now.
Here's a very interesting question. If miracles actually occur in this world, such as those described in the Bible, what would you predict the result would be of a scientific investigation? Have you considered the idea that if a miracle has actually occurred, then we should predict that the scientific consensus will show that it could not possibly have happened the way described in the Bible? So this raises a parallel question. Why would you expect that a scientific explanation would be compatible with an event if A divine interaction is stated quite clearly in the text. Have you thought about the huge implications? For example, although Christians propose a variety of interpretations for Genesis chapter 1, describing the creation of the universe and of the full diversity of life, one thing that seems reasonably clear is that God was involved in the creation of the universe and life. Why should we be astonished, therefore, if science will never find a testable and repeatable process for the creation of the universe and life? In fact, if there was a divine miracle, we would predict that the clear consensus of science would say that the events as described could not possibly have occurred. Scientism, therefore, puts the person of faith in a bit of a dilemma. Perhaps it would be helpful at this point to take a look at a smaller miracle mentioned in the Bible, when Christ turned water into wine. At a wedding in a village called Cana, they ran out of wine. Mary, the mother of Jesus, brought this to his attention, clearly implying that she would like him to do something about it. Somewhat reluctantly, he proceeded to ask that a number of large water jugs be filled with water and then sampled. Miraculously, they were filled with not just new wine, but wine that was described as very good. So let's think about a scientific explanation for a moment. First, wine that is very good requires aging. During an extended period of time, a number of chemical processes slowly take place that result in a fine wine about a year later. So if you were to submit a sample of that wine to a number of labs, the unanimous, clear consensus among all scientists and experts in the field would be that the wine was at least a year or so old, and they would be able to show exactly why that has to be the case. Anyone who suggested that the wine was only a few seconds old would be regarded as just plain silly. Second, wine requires carbon atoms, and there are none in water. If you want to produce carbon from water, nuclear fission is required to break down the oxygen atoms in the water, releasing an enormous amount of energy. Essentially, a nuclear fission bomb would have gone off in each of the water jugs.
Okay, so what did he do there?
And you will nuke Bethlehem because of that.
Yeah.
I got to step away for a minute.
Okay. So I mean,
could it be explained best by even just sugar adding to it?
Like I think he's just like.
Well, they used to use.
Like interpreting this text like, oh, Jesus turned water directly into wine without any use of like carbon atoms from carbon dioxide. But yeah, in any case, it's
he's saying
the miracle is impossible.
Well, you don't.
Everything
water. You don't have any grape. You don't have any. You're turning water into wine. You're obviously starting out with just H2O. Where'd you get the grape? There's no grape.
We don't know what really going on behind the scenes in the text.
Well, I think he's just talking about the compounds that you need. Like here, you need alcohol and you get also flavor compounds. But in any case, it's.
Well, you need. Yeah. You also need the tannins and the sugars and all that other crap.
Right.
I mean, what gives the red wine the body is the tannins. But they did have a cheat back in those days to sweeten wine, and they used lead.
But who the fuck would try to come up with a fission or fusion theory of how Jesus did it? I mean,
well, he's
people that want miracles to exist.
You don't know for sure it didn't happen, and you got to let those people have their faith. That's essentially what this all amounts to. Because, yeah, if somebody's going to claim to me that they witnessed water being turned to wine, I'm going to say, yeah, you're kind of delusional. Or maybe something happened that you didn't understand was going on, and somebody played a trick on you. That's a natural, normal response, and that's not my problem to clear up. It's really not the Christian's problem to clear up. It's God's problem to clear up. You know.
I don't. Who was that? Who was that guy? He sounded familiar. He looked familiar.
His name is Kirk Dumpster. He's got a channel. I get notifications from him. He's got a lot of shit out. And he's some sort of, I think he has some sort of credentials. He's some sort of scientist, but I'm not entirely sure. We can investigate him after we're done here. We only got 2 minutes at 1.25 to listen to. I want to see what his point is.
Mm-hmm. And the wedding would have ended in a gigantic fireball and mushroom cloud that would have been talked about for centuries as people looked at the glass crater that was once the town of Cana of Galilee. My point is this: if miracles have actually occurred in history, then we should predict that the clear consensus of science surrounding the consequences of the miracle will not at all match what happened. So it is fine and even good for Christians who are scientists to investigate a potential miracle to see if it's actually a miracle. But if it turns out to be a miracle, a scientific explanation may result in some absurd or wildly fantastic scenarios, as we often witness in the origin of the universe theories.
But what he's missing here is that if there was a miracle of some sort, like the parting of the Red Sea, there are after effects of that miracle that could be investigated scientifically, right? Like if I went out and parted Lake Superior,
then you have like, well, there were other miracles that erased those signs.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, unless he's proposing that miracles happen in a vacuum, which it didn't sound like that was what he was proposing. But I mean, that would be
His main thing is anti-evolution. So he's saying that, basically the stories we come up with for the diversity of life are just stories, according to him. And no, they're not. They're hypotheses. And they're hypotheses appealing with a lot of fucking evidence.
But nobody's appealing to a miracle when you're looking at the origin of species, because you're observing things that actually do exist. So if you can observe the process that water can actually transform into wine, you would start from the beginning and work your way through that. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't require you to assume speciation happens miraculously.
Well, he says that that we're being narrow-minded by looking for a scientific explanation, basically, that we should just accept that it's a fucking miracle. I don't know.
Then I'm narrow-minded. Okay.
Yeah, we're all scientists.
If you're talking about something that seems to suspend reality as we know it, but we would have to know all that there is to know about reality in order to claim that this is definitely a suspension of reality in order for this thing to have been defined. I wouldn't really know. If you're going to claim that this is a miracle, then I'd be like, okay, well, obviously there's something here. If people observe that, okay, all they had was water, and then all of a sudden now they've got a bunch of wine. Okay, obviously there's something here we can possibly investigate as to, how there's all of a sudden there wasn't this wine, but there was a lot of water, and now there's all this wine, and is there still the same amount of water or whatever? Right. Yeah, that's not being narrow-minded. That's just being skeptical. You're just asking yourself the question, what exactly is a miracle? Well, a miracle is where something, it seems to be where what we understand and what we observe about nature, somehow the laws of nature or whatever the restrictions that we normally observe in reality somehow get defied in some way. Like somebody being able to walk on water without use of any kind of instrumentation. They can just start walking on top of the water. It's as though they're, all of a sudden their body weight means nothing to the surface tension of water. That's something, okay, but I don't know. That's still you can still be skeptical. Are they just walking on boards underneath the water?
Well, I think too,
like magicians and illusionists.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people consider miracles.
Doesn't know.
Also, like he said in the beginning that only Darwinism is allowed in the field of science, and no, that it hasn't been the case since ever. Like even at the when Darwin proposed his theory, there were still other alternatives floating around during the what's called the eclipse of Darwinism, and even up until the moment when the quote modern synthesis was composed, which isn't really modern anymore. Even then, there were still alternatives like genetic drift. Genetic drift was quickly added after that too, as well.
Well, you had Lamarck, right? You had Lamarck coming up with his own theories, right? Around the same time as Darwin.
Like I said, there were alternatives floating around even during the time before the modern synthesis. So there was never the only game in town. Never the middle case.
But there are people that believe that Chris Angel and David Blaine and all those people do actual magic and stuff.
Yeah.
So but then they have behind the scenes. But if the person that doesn't have access to that will still believe
even when they do have access to it, some people will see the same person explain how they did it and still go, I don't care. You're doing some magic there. You know, I don't care what
they want to believe in magic sometimes.
A lot of people, I think a lot of people have been duped by Sherlock Holmes about what Arthur Conan Doyle said when he came up with Sherlock, you know, whatever, how does that go? Whatever remains, however unlikely, must be the case.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? When that's, a lot of people think that that's a wise thing. And Houdini, who was friends with Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, said it was absolutely the most fucking ridiculous thing. He may not have said fuck, but he said that's absolutely ridiculous because Sir Arthur Conan Doyle concluded that the only way that Houdini could have escaped from this trap was that he had to have literally disappeared. He had to have vanished and reappeared backstage because, however improbable, whatever, you know, when all answers are possibly exhausted, whatever remains must be the truth. And Houdini goes, and that's how I make my living.
Yeah.
Besides, what he's assuming is that, I'm gonna say a character like Holmes might think that he has exhausted all possibilities, all logical possibilities, or whatever, but you never really have. There's always a chance that you're blinded to some other possibility.
Yeah, you would have to be omnipotent or omniscient.
Okay, so I'm going to play a little more. The rest.
Origin of life scenario.
Oh, why you got to kill
already
us?
know that logic requires a supernatural origin for nature, as I've shown in a previous video. With that in mind, scientism appears to be a mistake. There are some things that cannot logically be explained by science. If the universe has a supernatural origin, then we should not be surprised if, from time to time, events occur for which fabricating a creative scientific-sounding narrative will actually be a mistake. Knowledge is an interconnected latticework of information and understanding, each facet of which influences and sheds light on other aspects.
Yes.
So, this leaves us with a bit of a conundrum. If science cannot explain everything, and if a scientific explanation for a miraculous event might be badly wrong, then what?
Therefore, God of the gaps.
Well, I hope you enjoyed.
Yep. So
that was absolute bullshit. That he summed that up with was absolute bullshit.
Yeah.
What else could there be? No.
Yeah, he's kind of saying, he's kind of, you know, doing this narrative that we should just quit looking. You know, it was a miracle. Obviously, it was a miracle. He's proved it in this other video.
He's doing the circular argument, like, oh, if this happened by a miracle, then science cannot find the answer. Therefore, we shouldn't look for. We shouldn't allow science to look for an answer. Therefore, it's a miracle.
We should. Yeah, we may not. Yeah, we can't. We may not necessarily be able to appeal to science. So what's the point? I'm like, well, this still doesn't mean you can't be skeptical and you still can't ask questions. I mean, yeah, I'll grant you that science isn't the only knowledge game in town, but when it comes to figuring out how things work, it seems to be working out pretty good for us.
Yeah.
It starts with what we observe. We come up with hypotheses. We test the hypotheses. If those graduate to theories and they still can be challenged, what's the fucking problem? It's not like you have to sit there and go, well, I can't challenge. You know, nah, that guy's a wiener. I'm just going to sit back here and continue being narrow-minded like him.
The weird thing is, according to his CV or whatever on his website, he has a PhD in biophysics.
Okay.
He's also a pastor and a philosopher, but it's just kind of weird the conclusions he's drawing.
Yeah,
we got another one. We have another one. He seems like a real popular dude. Anyway, let's see what he says here.
And science might also need to be critically examined.
The blood, science, and life, then please subscribe to my channel here. Literature led me to study physics and mechanical engineering in university, and I absolutely loved it. During those years, I had some interesting summer jobs, including one with a geological survey and another with National Defense Research, writing software to detect Soviet submarines. For my work with national defense, I knew that an effect produced by an intelligence often left behind a signature which could be detected and described in terms of digital information. It was this very phenomenon that enabled us to write software to detect Soviet submarines. I also knew
that the genomes of life were packed with digital information, and it looked to have the fingerprints of intelligence all over it. That digital information is slowly becoming corrupted over time, as is inevitable for all information storage devices. But the signature is still very detectable and functional. My curiosity to explore this further led me to a PhD program in biophysics, where I focused on ways to detect and quantify functional information.
How he doesn't mention the intelligence signal was detected in the genome, like.
But if intelligence degrades, did he say intelligence degrades over time?
Yeah. Well, he said the signal or the
information. Yeah.
The information degrades over time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
could the same thing be
entropy person?
Could the same thing be said about like our brains?
Yeah, I think I'm proof of that.
Okay. So what mind has he observed where the information in it doesn't degrade over time? He would have to appeal to an eternal one, right? That has where entropy and okay, yeah. When he can show me that, now we've got something.
Yeah.
Biopolymers such as proteins, DNA, and RNA, and figure out its role in terms of the submolecular structure of proteins. Although I've gone on to focus on other things in my career, I am still involved in scientific research on this.
Yeah, he became a preacher.
Side, currently working with a small team of scientists to further develop what I did in my research. All this to say is that science has been a major part of my life. But remember how I said before that modern science is in serious trouble? How could I say that?
Foreskin, real quick. I want to do something that Christian theists will sometimes do to atheists. I wonder what happened to him.
Yeah.
You know how Christian theists will do that? If somebody's an atheist, they go, well, I wonder what happened in their life if they just decided to hate God. I wonder why he quit his job and became a pastor. What happened to him?
His wife caught him at the porn.
There you go.
His wife owned his porn collection.
In my background. First, have you ever experienced any conflict between faith and science? How much do you assume that science is just fine and it is faith that needs to adjust? Have you ever encountered anything in science that seems a bit troubling to you? Does all modern science seem like one monolithic bastion of truth to you? Or do some aspects of science seem solid and other aspects seem more like creative storytelling? Just as you may have questioned your faith in God, in the same way, have you questioned your faith in science? Let me share a few things.
So what does he mean by faith adjusts?
Well, basically, I guess like you're like in a standoff on a bridge, and somebody's going to have to step to the side, and you always, I guess, he thinks too many people think faith needs to step to the side when science has a viewpoint. But do you hear this recurring theme of creative storytelling?
I wanted to jump on that myself. Yeah. How he's trying to, make science equal to his creative storytelling in his book. Yeah. Right. Trying to make them equal, Sorry, they're not equal.
No. Well, in fact, what he's saying is probably that a lot of science is creative storytelling, but his book's okay. I think that's where he's coming from.
Yeah. If you boil all that down to just narrative, so if you have scientific explanations and those are narratives, and then you have these narratives in these books and these scriptures, okay, now let's put them together and let's see which one comes out with the least amount of BS. Can we do that? Because that's fundamentally that's what he's doing. He's comparing narratives.
Yeah.
He just doesn't realize it.
He's trying to make evolution out to be nothing more than a creative storytelling narrative about the past.
Exactly. So he's just fundamental. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not how
evolution.
It's not how it's done.
Yeah, but even if you say fundamentally the theory of evolution, if you explain it to somebody goes, "Well, that's a neat narrative," and you go, "Okay, yeah, I can admit that it's a narrative. I've got a better narrative for you, and it's in Genesis 1." And you go, "Okay, exactly. Tell me how these two narratives relate to one another.
Tell me how that one's better." I mean, Jesus Christ.
Well, tell me how they even relate. One is about changing things that already exist, and the other one's about things coming about from the mind of a thing.
Yeah.
But from a higher perspective, from a broader perspective, he was talking about scientism. I couldn't understand if he was saying, if he's really talking about scientism or methodological naturalism, like the
they're just, I agree.
So
that's what he was talking about.
I mean, and certainly, like methodological naturalism is that the methods, that the scientific methods that we use to explore our world have naturalistic explanations. Like we can naturalistically explain the world through the scientific through scientific processes and theories and methods, it doesn't mean that we know everything. And it doesn't mean that, like, if we can't explain something, that we are immediately coming saying, oh, we know what it is. We don't, but we're not claiming that it's like something like God, you know. We're not making a faith-based claim.
Yeah, and if he's coming close to talking about people dismissing supernatural as anything, now he's going closer to metaphysical naturalism, where metaphysical naturalists just dismiss supernatural claims outright.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, because technically, like you guys were talking about the miracles, so-called miracles, like parting the Red Sea. Like, okay, if the Red Sea was parted, then if science, I couldn't quite understand if he's saying that like science could never explain that, or that science, like I guess I couldn't quite understand what he was saying about those topics.
I think he was saying that, like, okay, if a guy walks into a doctor's office and he's got like 3 packs of cigarettes in his pocket and he's puffing on a cigarette and it turns out he's got lung cancer, that the God should consider, or that the doctor should consider that God did it and it didn't have anything to do with him smoking.
Yeah, you just sinned.
Yeah, it's like, you know, I mean, why would he
just assume
that wasn't miraculous? Right?
That's actually a pretty good example, Speed. I like that.
Yeah, that is. That's kind of what he said.
Because it is abductive reasoning, but instead of it's abductive reasoning to an absurdity. Instead of going to instead of the abductive reasoning would be this person has lung cancer and they apparently have quite a heavy smoking habit here, but an inductive reasoning, which can lead to absurdities, would go, oh, it could just be a God that did it. It has nothing to do with that shit that you're inhaling. Yeah.
Yeah. Like a better example would be emphysema or COPD, where the doctor should tell them, fucking quit smoking, throw them away right now. But instead he tells them, oh no, I think you should go pray.
And the problem is here that the word scientism can mean different things. Like the first thing is like scientism can mean the position that science can explain everything. Like it's I don't hold the position, but when he complains about scientism, he basically means, well, I complain that science doesn't allow for magic.
Yeah,
that's basically it. Yeah,
that's a good point. That's like,
I'm doubling down on my scientism, by the way. Doubling down.
Do it.
Anyway. Okay.
I'm not.
I have found very revealing. Modern science can be divided into 3 main categories. The first category is experimental science. This is what I would call the gold standard of science. You can have a theory, suggest a way to experimentally test some predictions that your theory makes, and you get real results that can be checked and tested by other people. The results are testable and repeatable. You might be surprised to learn that although I have been involved in the sciences for many years, I have not yet found any conflict between faith and this gold standard type of science, experimental science. Unfortunately, even experimental science has become substantially corrupted in certain areas. In 2012, an article was published in the journal Nature, probably the most prestigious science journal in the world. The article revealed that out of 53 landmark papers in cancer research, the findings in 89% of them could not be replicated. The same journal published another article 5 years later stating that failure to replicate published findings is the norm. Let's pause for a few seconds and think about the implications of that phrase, the norm. There are areas of science today where the majority of papers have fallen prey to what the journal Nature calls perverse incentives, which include competition for funding, academic...
Yeah, okay, this bullshit. And what they're talking about is these studies that they do where they get a bunch of participants and they try to measure some trend in the participants, and they found out that they ate eggs and they have high cholesterol and whatever. So.
I mean, look, man, there's certain, like, first of all, I doubt that this guy truly understands the concepts of replication and reproducibility, like reproducible science, and it has different meanings for different disciplines of to reproduce a methodology, reproduce an experiment. So many scientists acknowledge that the issues of reproducibility are a problem, and we're constantly cross-checking ourselves to make sure that efforts are reproducible, but it doesn't mean that there aren't concerns with reproducibility. And the fact that we have publications that do meta-analyses that say, we see problems with reproducibility means that science acknowledges that those gaps and that we have to work on those gaps. And that is the strength of science, is that we acknowledge our weaknesses.
It's quite frustrating that some people will cite this particular study as, science is wrong. But
was it a bunch of pastors that found this problem with these cancer research studies? I mean, is that what happened? They basically they got this out of the Bible? No, it was fucking scientists that found the problem with the science.
Yeah, exactly.
What science
what's interesting is this reminds me of a conversation that I had. It was a comment thread conversation. It won't be. I'll keep it short. And it was between myself and Raw Matt. And Raw Matt posted an article, and it was about the theory of evolution. And at the very beginning of the article, the first thing that it says is, and it was, I can't remember who did the article. The whole thing got deleted because reasons, by Raw Matt or by Standing for Truth. And he goes, yeah, read this article. And I read the article, and the article starts out by saying that scientists recognize that the theory of evolution does not solve the hard problem of how life came into existence. And then it kind of continued on. It wasn't discounting the theory of evolution. It just said it doesn't solve the hard problem of how life came into existence. And I told him that. And he was like, see, so why do you hold to the theory of evolution? I said, because it's an explanation for how things change over time, not how life came into existence, numbnut. And he would not get that through his head. He could not get that through his head. He thought that the article was discounting the theory of evolution when all it was saying is the science has its limitations, but it still works.
Yeah.
That was the whole thing in the article. And he threw it at me like, see, this should tell you right now not to have any faith in evolution. I'm like, way to go, Raw. But yeah, that's it.
Oh, look, germ theory doesn't explain where germs come from. It's proven.
Okay, he's got a whole bunch of peer-reviewed articles here, like the consequential complexity of history and gratuitous evil. The complexity of history and evil.
I've seen that too. Like, he has some philosophy papers, and he has also some, like, one recent paper with Sal Cordova, I think. Also.
He was with Cell. Okay. So measuring the functional sequence complexity of proteins, and it's all just obviously. So who the fuck published these things?
Some of them are in. I think some of them are actually in good science journals. At least as far as I can tell. But yeah.
Well, functional sequence complexity in biopolymers would be something that would end up.
Yeah, he's got a biophysics degree, so I would assume he's done some lab work and stuff.
Yeah. Yep. But I'm not impressed, Maddox. I'm not impressed.
Yeah, I'm not impressed with his thinking.
Biophysics sounds so impressive, actually, but it's biophysics.
But not as impressive as the prestigious nature.
The prestigious.
You were talking about that the other day. Seeing the prestigious thing, and I was like, "Yep," and he did it too.
Can I say one thing?
Sure.
Since John called me out, which is, I can't remember exactly what he said, but okay. So essentially, I should read some of his peer-reviewed papers before I say he doesn't understand. Okay. I think that's a decent point. I mean, I haven't read any of his papers. Maybe he has some papers on reproducible science and the complications around scientific reproducibility, because that's what he's talking about in this specific instance, about the perversion of science, and that how there are publications out there that show that there are concerns with reproducibility. My point is that I'm not sure if this guy understands the complexity of what it means to have reproducible science. And there's a discipline on that shows the various aspects that apply to different disciplines. But maybe he's got some research in that I should read. So that I think that's a good point. I'm totally fine with checking that out. Maybe I should reevaluate.
And for those who don't have a really good grasp of biophysics or whatever it is that he's writing about, may not find anything informative because they may not understand what he's even talking about.
Yeah. And by the way, I'd love to talk.
Not that it's necessary. Not that it's necessarily by any means a way for them to dismiss it, but they may want to be careful about what opinions they derive from the work, considering the fact they don't have a good grasp of the science. It could lead to some really bad opinions.
Somebody that's in biophysics may have a different impression or interpretation of what reproducibility means, as opposed to somebody like, as an example, Maddox. Maddox makes claims around, he does work with more technological processes, coding, etc. As an example, machine learning and artificial intelligence modeling has a differing interpretation of what it means to be reproducible, as opposed to somebody who's in a lab. So
here's a question that I'd like to consider. Now, this, is it Dunstan?
Durston.
Yeah. And I wasn't trying to be silly or make a joke or anything. Durston, he used the word corrupt. That's corrupting science. And what he came up with was the replication problem. In other words, a lot of these papers that were written and published were not able to be replicated or were never replicated.
You mean the information that's in the test that they're reporting on or that they're writing about?
Well, that's not really a corruption of the process, because don't you publish results and then you allow other people to try to replicate it or reproduce it, and sometimes they can't. That's part of the process. Now, if you take that and carry on with it as if this was an established and highly tested result or whatever, then that's one thing. But to not reproduce something isn't in itself a corruption of science. It's actually what you're looking for.
Yeah, to be fair, it sounds like, Scott, like what you're basically saying is that there seems to be almost like a way of, from what Durston's talking about, one would infer that there's this dogma behind what's being published. That they will accept it dogmatically in order to protect the institution of science or scientism or whatever it is that they're relating it to. And instead, okay, we have these results. Okay, but the science is still open to the challenge. Well, is it really open to the challenge? Because if this stuff is corrupted, then these people may not want to look into this because of funding issues and all that.
Right. I've heard people say, well, who's going to spend time and money reproducing something that didn't work? So, like, even if somebody published some results, they're not going to. No, I think I'm losing sight of my point here. The whole idea, though, is that if there's time and money involved, and you have to kind of pick and choose what processes you're going to have your company or your institution invest in.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of
more money. There should be, okay, here we go. There should be more government funding of research, pure research, because that's what we get into. It's not a problem with science. It's a problem with the priorities of society.
I'm looking at his papers. Should we play a little more, or have we had enough of this guy? Want to look at what he wrote?
A little bit more. Your channel.
I hate when people say that. That implies I have to make a decision. I don't want to do that.
Make a decision. I do this for shits and giggles.
Okay, I don't take decisions lightly there, Jay.
Media and cultural pressure. I've collected 58 articles on this problem. If you want to know which areas of science suffer the most from these perverse incentives, follow the money. The top areas of funding today are cancer research, climate science, and immunology and pandemics. As far as political, media, and cultural pressure goes, researchers in the area of immunology, climate science, and in psychology, anything to do with studies in sexuality.
So what? Oh, sexuality. Oh. So what do you want? What do you want to bet he's a climate change denier and a vax denier?
Well, it sounds like it. I mean, you're talking about things that affect. So immunology affects people's livelihood, their lives. Climate, obviously, that's kind of an ongoing. That's been a big thing lately. It's been a big thing for quite a while. And then what was the other one? Psychology. I don't.
Sexuality.
Oh yes. Psychology along with sexuality.
Yeah, he's talking about
Okay.
gender. I think he's talking about gender. Pretty sure.
Yeah, gender norms, and homosexuality, and and all that kind of stuff. Gender fluidity and all that other stuff. Yeah.
Let's see if he's got more to the list.
To produce the results required by our.
Isn't there a problem though with lots of data that has been used in papers, especially medical kind of stuff, where you're getting a skewed result because mostly they'll test things on college students who are typically a little more affluent than the wider population. They're more white than the total population, and what you end up is something skewed a certain way towards males and white people, and that doesn't.
Well, now you're getting and that gets more into the statistics than the actual science.
Yeah, there've been a whole lot of statistical studies that we should take them all with a grain of salt and wait for more studies to be done, because that's the way you got to fucking do that, right? That was a whole cholesterol thing,
And the answer is fund pure research. Fund pure research.
Well, I think you have to define what pure research is.
So he's got one of the papers on Google Scholar are about P.Z. Meyers. He wrote about P.Z.
really?
Meyers. Yeah, we'll have to take a look at that. But okay, so
isn't P.Z. Myers? Isn't he passed away, or is he still around? I thought he passed away.
He was on David Neff's channel.
No, Atheist Junior.
David Neff's channel.
Oh, David Neff. I'm sorry, it was David Neff. It was David Neff. My apologies.
Okay.
If he passed away, he looks pretty goddamn good for a corpse.
I know.
I wasn't sure.
Holy shit! A resurrection.
Easy Myers.
A resurrection. Yeah.
I
We
knew.
witnessed it.
No,
I knew it.
No, it's not. It's not a resurrection. It's his twin that's just finally come out.
Oh shit!
They kept him out. They kept him out in the woods.
Damn.
They kept him out in the woods.
I've been trying to prove that Bible for so long. I thought we had it there.
Yeah.
Son of a bitch. All right.
Shit.
Well,
I'm trying to make sure I've got these videos in the description. So
maybe next time.
Okay, let me play this guy while I'm working on my description.
And to not publish results where severe backlash and even defunding may swiftly result. Thus, even experimental science has been corrupted by what we might call human nature with its perverse incentives. So the question to ask yourself before you accept the peer-reviewed paper as the gospel truth is whether or not the results have been replicated by other independent researchers. Examine their data and methodology closely to look for possible flaws. The second major category of modern science is...
I've decided to call him Kirk Dumpster. Kirk Dumpster.
But here's the thing though, the perversity. What perversity is he seeing in?
Yeah.
So so I get that there can be some bias, and I mean people have their biases, and yes, that can obviously sway certain studies, certain scientific research the wrong way, especially if there's funding on the line and that kind of thing. Got to get these results, kind of thing. But exactly what perversity in human nature necessarily? I wonder what he sees there with climate science. Like I can get where he might go with sexuality, but with immunology and climate science, that seems kind of weird to me.
Well, it's kind of perverse to wear a mask and get a vaccine, I guess.
I mean, is he claiming that people have ulterior motives to structure their theories in alignment with the most likely options for funding? So if funding is highly oriented towards, let's say, anthropogenic climate change, then I think the perspective might be that all these people are either consciously or unconsciously structuring hypotheses and coming up with conclusions to those hypotheses that support anthropogenic climate change. The problem is that all that research gets cross-validated and checked by all these different people. And if that were the case, then we would see that in the literature, and we don't. Particularly from a climate science perspective, I don't know about other disciplines, but I'll tell you for that, we don't.
When we read his papers, we had to apply the same level of skepticism.
Sure. And,
Right?
and just to add on to that, that if you think about it, like if somebody, I guess somebody could say, look, I want to structure my research to get funding. Definitely. People do that. People say, they say, okay, what is the hot topic? Can I publish? Can I focus on an area where I can actually get money? Like some people work in areas where there's like no funding. Like even if they are interested in a topic, there's literally no money for them to do any research. So climate science is an area where there's a lot of money. So certainly people want to, that there is a cross section or an intersection there. I agree with that. But it really just comes down to, is the science actually valid, and can we evaluate that and use the process of peer review to evaluate that to see if that research is actually valid?
And we're looking for veracity. Not only are we looking for the validity of the work, but we're looking at the veracity in the claims.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, devious distortions, Durston or Meyers. That's the name of his little piece on PZ Meyers. Anyway, okay, playing.
So does that mean Meyers? Oh, I'm sorry.
During my summer job at the Geological
Does that mean
Survey,
Meyers
I watched
has written about him?
What?
Does that mean
PZ
Meyers has
Meyers.
written about Dunst?
He had a debate with him, I guess.
Oh, okay.
It's a 2009 debate with me, PZ Meyers. We'll pull that one up later. Take a look at it.
Geologist stood on some particular outcrop and debated what had happened there over geological time. Nobody could actually test out their theories since it's impossible to move around massive chunks of rock the size of large cities. I call this inferential science because you start with observable facts and then infer a conclusion that you can't actually reproduce in a lab because of the degree of difficulty or even the impossibility of testing the conclusion. In inferential science, we take an inductive leap from known facts to a possible conclusion. Sometimes the leap is quite small.
Well,
for example,
foreskin.
forensic science.
Yeah, geology.
But in a hypothesis, now I'm not. Forgive me if I'm ignorant on this, but with a hypothesis, you can infer a conclusion, but you can infer a conclusion, but you're still stuck having to trust whether or not the conclusion that you're possibly inferring is weighed out, right?
Yeah.
But is it all experimental science also inference? Like
Yeah, exactly. They overlap big time. It's not like people don't do experimental observational science and then don't do like inferential statistics on that work. We absolutely do. Oftentimes experimentation and observation are done on a representative data set that is attempting to represent the universe of a particular topic. And then we use like inferential statistics to extrapolate that and to understand its relationships with other variables. So the fact that these two are they're not just exclusively separate. There's a lot of overlap in those. So
yeah, if you look at, if you've ever watched a geologist out in the field or a couple of geologists talking about how some formation happened, they're out there talking about, some guy's theory from 30 years ago, and then another theory from 20 years ago. Sure. And then they did some core samples, and then they think this happened. I mean, it is a narrative, that's for damn sure. And the narrative goes to the hypothesis, and then you can test it. And then, 2 years ago, some guy did a drill core sample, and they found out, no, this happened. I mean, what the hell are we supposed to do? It's because from that hypothesis, they can make a prediction about some other part of that geology or geography and find out if that comes true, and it either does or it doesn't. But that's how it works. That's what we
could jump to the conclusion that something could possibly just be a miracle, and that wouldn't be an inference.
That God just laid the layers down that way, or it all happened.
Well, like he said, like he was talking about on his other video. Yeah. Well, don't dismiss that this couldn't be scientism would dismiss that the possibility of a miracle. Well, when would I infer a miracle?
Yeah, I think geologists do that right around lunchtime. They say, "Oh, fuck it, it's a miracle. Let's have lunch."
Hey, man, Let me just tell you one thing. Geologists drink all the time. I'm going to tell you.
Imagine.
Here's what happens. You go to on a field course for like 2 months and you're out in the field. You go out all day long. You're in front of outcroppings. You're doing sequence stratigraphy. And then in the evening you go pick up a huge amount of alcohol and you just get loaded. Then they just go to sleep, get up the next day, do the whole thing again. And then you just repeat that over and over again.
Yeah, but they get to blow things up too. Don't forget that. That's got to add some fun to it.
Yeah. And then what they do is they get a scientist in there, and that scientist starts to do blood draws to observe the amount of liver enzyme that is increasing over time while these guys are on the job.
I'm telling you.
Yeah. This guy worth the last 6 minutes or what?
I want to hear what number 3 is. Like he's got experimental, inferential. What's the third one?
Okay.
Yeah, I got him at 1.5. So
evidence and attempts to reconstruct what actually happened. We cannot go back in time to the actual event and watch it reproduced, but we can come to reasonably sound conclusions if the leaps are not too large. For example, if your fingerprints are found in the bank, then maybe you're the one who robbed the safe. There are areas in this category of science where the leaps are huge. For example, we observed that...
Oh, fuck. Has anybody used the miracle defense?
Variation is possible for most species, and the results can change over time and in different populations. From that, Darwin inferred that if there are no limits to variation, then all of life could have descended from just one simple organism a long time ago. Since Darwin laid out his thinking, an enormous number of creative stories and scenarios have been produced to explain the origin and diversity of biological life. Thus far, however, science has failed to demonstrate that there are no limits to variation. But this massive inductive leap continues to be accepted despite what appears to be constant falsification of its fundamental premise of unlimited variation. As I mentioned earlier, I
just wanted to point out that a lot of evolutionary theory is about limits to variation.
Yeah, one big thing is evolvability and developmental constraint. Like if you look those things up, then you'll see. Like it's like, are you familiar with the principle of monophyly? Like you cannot go out of your ancestry. Like the reason why that is the case is because of developmental constraint. A whale is still a mammal because it cannot evolve in such a way to stop being a mammal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's done quite a few things on intelligent design too, I notice in further pages. So he's very much into that, but okay.
Observed any conflict between faith and experimental science, but I have noticed some possible conflicts between inferential science and faith. The bigger the inductive leap from the facts to the conclusion, or the greater number of leaps required to arrive at that inferred conclusion, the more likely it is that there might be a conflict between faith and the conclusion.
How big a leap is Noah's flood?
So, what is the takeaway for this particular aspect of modern science? First, when you read a science article, I would suggest asking yourself, are these results experimentally verified, or are they the result of an inductive leap? If the conclusions or statements in the article are assumptions, or the result of an inductive leap, how big is that leap, and how well is it justified? Another question to ask yourself is, how would you recognize the difference between science and creative storytelling? For example, in a short 2-page science article on the origin of the first species, I counted a total of 28 words and phrases such as presumably, probably, possible, might have.
They fucking hate that.
At some time, possible scenario, could have, is conceivable. Over time, researchers believe, and so on. These are what I call lack of supporting.
Okay, so when you're listening to your local preacher talk about, when you're listening to your local preacher talk about the flood and Genesis, how many times does he say presumably, probably, possibly, might have, at some time, possible scenario? I mean, okay.
Wait a minute. What was that?
Well, that was Orphan Black, I think. Or no, that was my son's. I got my 2 sons as a weird sci-fi tone. So. My son calling me. I'm sorry.
No, it was cool. It came in just as like somebody's gonna go see speeds out of his. Also, he's spaced out.
Yeah, every time they call me, it is that weird. So anyway, they're very creative.
Okay, so anyway,
also, I'm reading one of his papers, and it also says that the phrase, or it also includes the phrase "could have" in this paper. So yeah, to cherry pick these words as if to mean it's all uncertain, and that's not the case at all.
This fucking song that they're singing here is just so silly and old. It's just so ridiculous. It's just
data phrases used to fill in for the fact that we have no supporting results. This raises another question for you to consider. How do you distinguish between good science and good science fiction? Good science fiction begins with known facts of known science and then builds creative stories or scenarios from there. Precisely what I see going on in an enormous number of science articles today, especially in the origin of life. The third category of modern science today is what we can call fantasy. And not surprisingly, within which I've also observed a conflict between faith and fantasy. In this category of science, creative storytelling is fully unleashed to produce ideas that simply cannot be tested. A few years ago, an article in the science journal Nature, written by George Ellis, pointed out, for example, that theories of the multiverse are untestable and should not be regarded as science. In another article in Nature, he and cosmologist Joseph Silk argued that multiverse theories, or theories of a universe from nothing, are actually fantasy and a threat to the integrity of physics. Surprisingly, these pieces of fantasy are often treated as science in the popular media simply because it was a scientist who made up the story. But have you considered?
And these are scientists that are writing the criticism.
What the hell? You know, this is so ridiculous. I thought he was actually a serious. He was trying to make some serious points, but that last point I mean, he's got an MA in philosophy, correct? His MA is in philosophy. So I mean,
this is just basically a whole long argument of science was wrong before.
I mean, Jesus, like how many? Okay. I'm a scientist. I'm not a philosopher. So I can appreciate philosophy, but some things about philosophy that they like, it's like philosophical masturbation, you know, like these conversations about what ifs and ontological arguments. They're just reasonably focused. There's no evidence, etc. That he's got an MA in philosophy. And so he's talking about people writing so-called like fantasy articles. I mean, lots of philosophical discussions are just that. They're just pontifications on logical propositions that people have come up with. So I'm surprised he would say that.
Right.
He has an MA in philosophy. Yeah. Like we should just discount philosophical explorations on topics of the multiverse. I mean, what the hell, you know? So whatever.
Oh, I want to mention Germania is having a live stream after this. I'll put up the link in a little while, but.
Yes, Jason, you should take a peek because if you want to hook up with Little Peepee, he might be on there.
Okay, but it's Germania, not Germania. Germania.
Oh, Germania. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's GRR space mania, right?
Yeah, not
really,
those
two
Jason,
different?
Not really, Jason. We're just fucking with him.
Oh, okay.
Somebody came up with Germania yesterday. So,
that was me. That was me. I couldn't.
Yeah, I think he likes Germania, not
Germania. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been on his stream before, so.
But I've been on his streams, and Germania has some logic to it. So.
No, Little Peepee goes on there once in a while. I can't guarantee that he'll be there, but he does go on there.
He's mad at Gur. He's mad at Gur because he hangs out with Speed.
Yeah. So.
The possibility that not every creative story invented by scientists is actually good science. Remember, just because a scientist creates a creative scenario, it does not follow that it is science. It is probably better classified as good science fiction. I would like to talk more about this in the next few upcoming videos, but for now, here are some takeaways. First, next time you read a science article,
that's a little
Michael Crichton. Michael Crichton. No kidding. Michael Crichton, hematologist. Write science fiction. Some of my favorite science fiction.
Yeah.
Okay. But are you talking about now? What's interesting is, are you saying that these scientists are doing this? It sounds like what he's saying there is that they are doing this, purposely fabricating this science.
Yeah.
So he's saying that these scientists are frauds. If he's making the claim that these scientists are frauds,
all of them.
Yeah, like people can propose ideas that may not necessarily be supportable and say, look, I don't necessarily have any evidence to support this, but I have a theory on why this might be the case, and I'm going to talk about it. There's no problem in doing those kinds of things. The people, but like what you're saying, Jay, like I oftentimes hear Christians, and not just Christians, but people will say, "You're lying. You're lying. You're being like." When somebody's just making a point that may not necessarily, it may be their actual position, but they're not purposefully saying a mistruth.
Yeah, there's no. They're not. There's no intent necessarily. Yeah, the intent is what's behind a lie. You
Correct.
know it's true. You're purposely trying to deceive someone with a mistruth. That's lying.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
if this person is just conceptualizing, or they're just theorizing, or whatever, speculating, that doesn't necessarily mean they're lying.
Correct. Yeah.
Oh, let's finish this up.
Article, be on the lookout for phrases used such as perhaps, probably, could have, and so forth. Second, next time you run into a conflict between faith and science, ask yourself what category of science is being talked about.
Okay. Why do you have to be so careful to look for probably or maybe? Because even if you're doing observational kind of experimentation, you're still limited to the probably and the maybe and that and things like that. Everything's a bit tentative.
I think that's called humility. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's why they use those words.
Also, why does it matter if I used uncertain or certain words? Like if I use certain words, like no uncertainty in my vocabulary, just being absolutely certain. Does that mean I'm right? No, it just means I'm confident, but my confidence doesn't guarantee that I'm right.
Yeah, and that's like, nobody cares about your confidence. Just give us a 100% fact that's completely reproducible in a way that we can say we're satisfied with that, and then you're good. Then you can open your fucking mouth. But until then, enough with the probablys and the maybes. Just kidding.
Yeah,
have a little fun with that.
We're supposed to be really skeptical unless we're reading these guys. Then we're not supposed to be skeptical, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Read a science article, be on the lookout for phrases used such as perhaps in science. Ask yourself, how many inductive leaps are required? Are science fiction and creative storytelling involved here? Stay tuned for my next videos dealing with faith and science. Well,
can't wait.
You might want to explain. The interesting thing, you might want to explain to your audience what an inductive leap is, as compared to an abductive, using inductive reasoning, abductive reasoning, and deductive reasoning. So you may want to clarify that with your audience, and maybe he has some past videos, but either way, not everybody that's going to look at this is going to know exactly how to, they're reading something, they're not going to know how to recognize an inductive leap.
And actually to even say an inductive leap is a very vague term, because oftentimes scientists are very specific in the level of uncertainty or stochasticity in a particular analysis. And statistically, if we're empirically doing inferential statistics, we run an extensive number of tests to evaluate a significance or the level of confidence in the amount of variability in a particular data set that we are examining. What is the population that we're looking at representative of the greater whole? I mean, we try to be very specific on that, not just say, oh, is it an inductive leap? Well,
that and the fact that the term inductive leap does seem a little bit useless, considering the fact that inductive reasoning can lead to absurdities. So kind of qualifying an inductive leap seems kind of, I don't know.
I mean, all induction has some leap in it. I mean, because you're using some inferential technique. So therefore, the nature of being inferential is that there is some form of a leap.
Yep, every swan I've ever.
We have to assume that like in last Thursdayism, we cannot prove it's false, but we have to assume that it's false because
every swan I've ever seen is white, therefore every swan is white.
Thank you, Karl Popper.
Okay, this 2017 paper here is about arguments on the origin of the vertebrate liver, which is kind of a big issue because all vertebrates have like roughly the same liver structure. So they have to go way, way back. I don't know what the hell, 700 million years, 600 million years, and try to figure out how the liver evolved, right? But this article is about the various arguments that they're having, and these are called hypotheses, and he's calling them science fiction. And in this article, they'll probably do a lot of probably and whatever, because we don't fucking know the answer yet, right? We're working on it. I mean, I just want to, this happened to be something that I'm looking at currently, is the evolution of the liver. So
I even need it says the recent, damn it. Like I was reading, the recent discovery of liver-specific proteins in amphioxus supports a particular hypothesis. So it's not just all speculation. They look at the evidence and they come up with plausible hypotheses. So it's not all science fiction.
And the other thing is the structure and how it develops in the embryo is very similar to this amphioxus. So they think it's a goddamn good hypothesis. So they're looking at it. Unfortunately, they're looking at 2 extant species and trying to go all the way back down the branch and figure out what happened. And of course, we can do that with genetics by comparing the proteins and comparing the structure, comparing the genes. So anyway, that is the game, right?
I would like to propose this, and it's kind of at the expense of Stephanie Trenton, but reading her comments in the live chat, is it justified for me to infer that she's taking some kind of drug?
I know we always think that.
I don't think so. You should have read her earlier comments. Like, she doesn't go to the doctor unless she has a broken bone and stuff. Those were some of her earlier comments. So
here's his one of his prestigious papers. So anyway, this is interesting. I can see if I can link this for people. Functional information.
She also said that if you think fit, you'll be fit. And I was like, yeah, I just thought about doing 1,000 push-ups. Felt great.
Yeah, so these guys are citing Shostak's paper on information, and that paper does not.
Sorry, Stephanie.
It doesn't support them the way they think it does. It's just kind of amazing. But anyway, this is probably worth looking at. Worth looking at this debate. So I think we'll take a look at that. What do you think?
The PZ Meyers and Durskin one?
Yeah, it was from 2012. So I'll link that.
What was the topic? Was the debate topic?
Does God exist? That's the
geez. Wait a minute. I think I may have watched that. That might be where I've seen that guy from. I may have watched that debate. That may have been one that my brother recommended to me a while back, long time ago.
Yeah, but like this paper, hold on. I dare call it a paper. It's just he wrote something up and it didn't get reviewed. I mean, it's not in a journal. It's something that he wrote.
So, it was in Google Scholar.
Yeah, the Durskin actually has a paper with all the actually published. That's the site's Shostak. It's called let's see, it's called again, Measuring the Functional Sequence Complexity of Proteins.
Yeah, but this right here, devious distortions, Durskin or Meyers. This is just a write up. This isn't.
Yeah,
this isn't. It's not a peer.
It's fluff.
Yeah, which is fine.
Let me see if I can find the measuring one. Well, he's got a couple. He's got functional sequence complexity and biopolymers. And
that one is not that one doesn't have a publication attached to it. Like I see. Let's see here.
Oh my God! The first gene, David Abel, editor. So David Abel. Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly.
Abel,
it's a fluff publication. Yeah.
I mean, keep in mind, like this. Okay, measuring the functional sequence complexity of proteins. That paper that was written in 2007 has 10 citations.
Really,
it has been cited 10 times. That is 15 years old. So the impact of it is.
I see 21 citations, but still, it's not much.
I see 10. I mean, I'm looking at this.
I'm looking at Semantic Scholar.
Theoretical Biology and Medical Modeling is where it was published. So it was peer reviewed. And why not a DOI? Where's the DOI for the thing? Okay, let's take a look at it.
I also see that Swamidas. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He Like he also has a paper published that cites this paper by Thurston.
It's called Swami Das.
Yeah, it's called Evolution and Functional Information.
And like a common tactic technique is for people to cite their own papers. I mean, if you're doing other work and you write a paper, you cite your other papers. So.
You mean like Otangelo? You mean like Otangelo citing his blog post?
Look who his co-authors are. Look who his co-authors are. Abel and Trevor's. Again,
I don't even know who those guys are.
Oh, they're okay. When John Maddox talks about ribosomal pausing, he got it from David Abel and Trevor's, and D'Onofrio is another one that publishes with Abel. Anyway, David Abel, if you go to the creation site, they list a bunch of papers that are scientists that are friendly to creationism. And David Abel has 48 publications there, I think. So, I mean, that's so many. He's the one that P.Z. Meyers went out and found out that his what do they say about his prestigious research institute is located in a suburban house on some city street. Right?
I actually uploaded a few years ago. I uploaded a video like showing the statistics of the ID creationist scientific literature, and it's not very exhausting, to say the least. Even the papers that they have like they only have a few hundred, but most of their papers are just published in their own pet journals.
Yeah, in I guess half the men in the United States, you'd probably find some sort of pornography in their bathroom reader or whatever. But in John Maddox's bathroom, you'll find David Abel and random sequence complexity and ordered sequence complexity. So I'm pretty sure he jacks off this shit.
That's his spank bank.
Maybe I'm just I'm too nice, but like folks like John Maddox and Otangelo, I don't want to be rude, man. They have their own perspectives. That's fine. I'm not going to call like John like names or anything like that. So
no, I wouldn't.
Oh, I'm not.
Yeah, Jason, I would never be rude to John, would I?
No, of course not.
Liar!
You do call him Little PP, which is not the kindest of things to do. But
have I called him that? Oh, I guess I have.
All right.
I told you guys to go with LPP.
LPP. That sounds more professional.
PP. Yeah.
Here we go. David Abel really puts out some crap. I'll tell you, takes a while to weed through it. Anyway,
I have a feeling that looking at this guy's paper from 2007, that what this is a doctoral paper, so it's a paper as part of maybe his dissertation, and that Trevor's was probably his advisor, and that Abel and this other person were on his committee or associated. That's maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's what I'm sensing. So, which is fine. That's totally fine.
Well, it looks like Abel did quite a bit of the work here because all of this stuff is from Abel's book.
Oh, is it? Oh,
yeah, FSC, RSC, OSC. All this stuff is Abel. Abel. I have his books. I have 2 of them. And he's written, like I say, I've got, if you go and look at my Horseman directory, if I've shared it with you, in that directory, I think the top 30 papers are Abel. So I put a bunch of them out. Let me get this one in the description, and I want to shoot her in the head a little bit early today, if we could.
Before you go, I put in the private chat a link to the paper by Swami Das, and I also included the link to a discourse or the Peaceful Science discourse where Swami Das and Thurston also the conversation there. So
okay, I'll put those in the description. Yeah, we might do a little more of this tomorrow. I might look a little more Kirk Dumpster, Thurston. I don't want to be disrespectful to Jason.
Yeah, that's fine.
So yeah.
Yeah, please do. My time. I know my activity on these little streams is going to be very limited come Saturday afternoon. So I may end up actually doing. Yeah, I might do a Saturday slapstick if I get up early enough. But yeah, I'm going to have in-laws staying with me for a month,
Oh.
and both of them voted for Trump. So you can imagine some of my conversations online, if I got into any kind of politics, might not go over so well with company.
Oh my.
And from what I can see from the abstracts of like Thurston's paper and Sommer's paper, I think the argument seems to be like, oh, their methodology shows that like in the sequence space of proteins, there are only a very few areas where proteins are functional. So because there are only very few islands within this huge sequence space, evolution is impossible. Basically, that's the argument.
Yeah, and actually, when you look into it, when you look into Shostak's paper, the functionality in some of these proteins turns out to be a lot higher. The number of proteins in the space turns out to be a lot higher than they would have thought. Still, it's a gigantic space.
Yeah,
but there's a gigantic number in that space that are functional.
Yeah, and there's actually an interesting paper that I remember. Like I remember a paper that showed that even random polypeptides, like a very even relatively short polypeptides that are just random, they tend to bind to metals or transition metals, which are very, very relevant into some of the basic metabolism, like for example the electron transport chain that includes transition metals often. So it's really interesting to see that.
Yeah, Dessel Drace last night did a thing on RNA World, and he was talking about how long these RNA replicators have to be. They have to be like 80 to 150 nucleotides long. But the thing is that very, very small RNA polymers do fold into remarkable shapes, and they can attach metal ions.
Oh, I was talking about polypeptides. Yeah.
That too. But even RNA can attach to metal ions and have catalytic effects. So this is something we really haven't looked into a lot.
Hey guys, I got a family thing I got to do, so I got to split out of here. So
yeah, we're gonna shoot her in the head anyway.
Okay, great. Okay, well, I'll see everybody. So good talk.
Okay, so Germania is going live in 2 minutes. Oh, look at this! What an impressive countdown. So should we shoot her in the head, guys?
Final
countdown.
Sure.
Okay. We're gonna kill it. We're gonna kill it.
I'll make that decision for you.
How am I supposed to say it? Germania or Garmania?
Germania. It's Germania.
I don't know. I
just want to say to our viewers, get off my lawn.
There you go.
Okay.
Stay curious.
Goodbye.
Praise will shoot you.
Yeah.